Hey, I'm Andy, and welcome to Rock, Roll, and Red Plaid. Live and in person. Well, not live, but in person. Not even, neither live nor in person. The heck with it, but whatever. Rock, Roll, and Red Plaid podcast here with Mike Piehl, the one and the only drum carrying, bicycling drummer extraordinaire. How long? When did we meet? What was it? 2007?
The years are terrible for me, like which
Oh,
years they were. Yeah, probably that sounds about right.
the way for a quick background, we you were a drum instructor at Day Jams, which I guess how could you describe it? The rock and roll fantasy camp for teenagers, more or less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it was summer camp, for fixed it.
Now he's there. We go.
That's gonna screw you up.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, in
yeah, summer
post, but
camp.
that's okay.
Yeah, parents looking to get there. Other than you, your mom was there, but like
Yeah.
get rid of their kids for a couple hours on a weekday during the year.
Yeah. The director who was there the first year was my first guitar teacher before Raleigh, and
Who? Oh, your first year.
it was like oh five, I believe, 2005. So I was 11. And this
Who
is a
was that
few.
teacher?
His name was Steve Geyer. He needed hands, and I guess the way it worked is that if my mom was either a counselor or whatever position she was, I got a discount on the program. So I'm like double whammy.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
so many recommendations kept coming back from my mom. She came back every year I went.
Yeah,
So came with the package deal, I suppose.
yeah, she's awesome.
And indeed she is. Which also I was saying this to my dad today. Her ear for vocal harmonies are it's almost how criminal how easy she makes it look.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Well, when the Eagles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Joan Baez are your bread and butter.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So as I ask the first question for everybody for who comes in to this show, who was your first musical hero? The person that not only you heard but made you go, "I want to do that."
Michael Jackson.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think about it like there's when you're a teenager, there's obviously I was huge into like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin,
Mm-hmm.
but I saw the Jackson Five had to be like 5 or 6 years old, so I had to be like 73, 74,
Okay.
and it was the Jackson Five and the Osmond brothers, and I was like, get these white guys out of here! Like I was like I was like, this is, and I even then, like it was like, yeah, all the cool guys on Sesame Street and the Electric Company were the black guys, and I was huge into the Jackson Five. Like I would watch them on Mike Douglas, like any show that they turned up on. I don't know
Okay.
how we even knew, but like, I guess the
Yeah.
TV guide would say,
Sure.
the Jackson Five or whatever. Um, this is before your time. Like we didn't have access to like YouTube and stuff like that, so you had to
Sure.
like wait for it. And I remember seeing, God, I can't remember. You could probably look it up what show it was, what TV show. But when Dancing Machine was the big hit
Mm-hmm.
from that record, he came out, and that's the first time he ever did the moonwalk. Like there's an
It was.
instrumental section
I
where
think it was. I want to. I don't. I want to say it was Billie Jean. I'm not sure.
mm-mm,
No, before that. Then.
mm-hmm,
Oh, okay.
song "Dancing Machine," the
Oh, excuse me.
lights
That's right.
start doing this,
Mm-hmm.
this thing, and he starts walking backwards, and everybody's like, "What the hell is this?"
Exactly. To this day, the only
Hey,
way I can do it is if I put my fingers on a table and go like that. So,
yeah, but that was my first. I mean, like I listened to that Jackson. I think it was the Jackson Five. It was a greatest hits record.
okay,
But it was only, it had ABC and I Want You Back and
sure.
all the whole thing is like, it's like two sides, 10 songs, and they're all killer. And that was
Yeah.
my my mom
Okay.
listened to a lot of great music in the house, like
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of R&B. She was way into like um, Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald
Mm-hmm.
and all the old singers, and like then we started getting like 8 tracks, and so she would like join Columbia House and get like Lou Rawls. Oh, was so much R&B.
Sure.
So that was my background. But then when I got into playing rock music, being the oldest, I didn't have like an older sibling that was going to turn me on to stuff. So I was the one who was discovering things, and yeah, somebody turned me on to like all my friends and I started listening to Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and then we'd like branch off from there into everything else, and then the 80s metal started and all that. So the Zeppelin thing, which a lot of guys that are younger miss, and even guys back then, they didn't realize that it's like that's all R&B. Like the reason people are like, trying to play like Bonham and they worrying about like the drum sound, and it's like, why don't you worry about the feel? It swings harder than anybody, and there's reason for it because he listened to R&B.
Didn't he really like Buddy Rich and guys like that? Like, as far as I know,
like he was really into what's his name? Take Five, Joe Morello. When you watch a video of Joe Morello playing the drum solo in Take Five, it's everything in Bonham's drum solo. It's all right there. It's all, and it was the same era actually. Yeah, Joe, same. I think probably somewhere around the same age as Buddy Rich.
Okay.
But yeah, he was really like influenced by all that stuff, and like that's the thing is like you need to know, you need to go backwards. Guitar players do it all the time, like you need to know who, oh, you're into Stevie Ray Vaughan, then who did he listen to,
right,
and all that, and it makes you a more well-informed player.
You mentioned the feel and the swing. Like I listen to I love Thin Lizzy. They're one of my favorite bands. To the point where it's not an expensive one, but my Epiphone Les Paul Jr., I purposely shaved down all the finish off of it on the front and the back and the neck to have that like blonde maple thing that Gary Moore used to have, just for the, as you do. That's for some reason I went on a tear there. I had to have my friend do it. He's like, "Are you sure you want?" I'm like, "Yes."
Right.
But their drummer, Brian Downey, I think his name was, all those songs, not just like Boys Are Back in Town, but that one specifically, that swings. That is just more or less I don't know what the technical term would be, but it swings hard, And when we were playing it, my band, my drummer, I mean, he knew the song, but he was listening to it just through his phone without like a good headphones on, and he's going, "Well, where's everything?" And we put it through our PA, and he goes, "This swings. This is almost like a ballroom song." I'm like, "Right? There is those. It's not straight." And their drummer they have now, who's their original drummer, retired, but I don't even know who's left in that group. But he plays it straight, doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Yeah, Bad Reputation.
Killer.
You
got a bad, right? Yeah.
And yeah, the drumming on that is insane.
It's all the two. I think he was even swinging with the two kick drums there. He was somehow doing it that way too.
Yeah.
But going back to Bonham for a second, all my drummer friends, it's consistent. He's always in there. What, I guess, from asking you from a drummer's perspective, was he the kind of the guy, as it were, like your Hendrixes and your Van Halens for guitar? Was he that definitive guy for drummers, I suppose, or was he? Yeah.
I mean, there's everybody. Nobody will say, like I remember hearing. I've never been a huge fan of Ginger Baker, only because I heard him like talk smack about Bonham, and I was like, why would anybody, like, he was upset that Bonham got all these accolades, and I was like, why? First of all, why would you care? Like, drummers are like, it's like a brotherhood. Like we're all like, like, oh, that guy's awesome, like if why wouldn't you think that? But not, I mean, getting away from what one person thinks. Everybody, like you could talk to like jazz drummers, you could talk to like, especially today, like you could talk to like Brian Blade or like all these guys that are jazz drummers that will, I guarantee you, Bonham will be on their list.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody. It's just, and it's a thing where it's a respect for the simplicity. Like and I think a lot of that was Jimmy Page too, like where he put drums in the song, like in the mix. So, you know, like Bonham had a great feel and a great sound, but you got to give it up to whoever was mixing that. I played on records where like drums get buried. And I'm like, man, you know, like they put it up, you know, like it was just like, so when you listen to it, when you want to like learn how to play drums, you listen to that and you can hear everything. So it really informs your learning. So it's a great tool. Like even as a teacher, like my youngest is learning to play drums, and like I've been like, I was just like, listen to this, like just it's right there. Like all you have to do is listen and play what you hear, because it's so upfront and you don't have to like sweat it to get it out of it.
Right.
And he played the song. Like that's what I love about it. Like the fills, he's not playing a drum fill to like show off what he can do. He can play a drum solo and you're like, wow, he can do all that, but he's holding back during the song because he's playing the song, which is what I love about anybody. I mean, there's a lot of guys that can do all the gymnastics, especially now on Instagram. And I'm just like, yeah, that's great, but I'm just not interested. Maybe I'm old, but I mean, I guess I was at Berkeley. We were into like, you know, whoever was the gymnast at the time. But then after Berkeley, I pared down to like just kick, snare, and hi-hat for my gigs, one cymbal to get away from that.
Yeah.
To just play groove music and just go, okay, enough with the, you know,
trickery, not trickery, but the pageantry or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I will say, just from an outsider's perspective, I have never seen someone throw down like Morgan Rose from Seven Dust. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Just, you know, just from an outsider's perspective, like I can't even hold a quarter beat. That's just not a thing I can do. Just, I'm fine with that. Spinning while playing and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's great. That's part of his gig. But at the same time, he's completely consistent, never misses anything.
Well, my guy has always been, I went to, I mean, I've known Todd Zuckerman plays drums with sticks, but he's also like a guy who does clinics and he's like, you know, the modern drummer, like all those poles and things like that. And he's a clinic drummer, but if Todd were playing a Cars tune, you would never hear a drum fill. Like he knows he could play a gig on just kick, snare, and hat and sound amazing. And when he plays solos, like he's on one of those Drumeo videos, the solo is like you could sing it back. There's phrasing, there's a theme that he sets up, and he you know, it's like verse or like A B A, and you can sing it back, and then he solos over the theme, and it's just so refreshing. A guy that has all the chops of all those guys, maybe even better than a lot of them, but doesn't have to use them
certainly
to show up. But I mean, he's got, you know, he'll blow you away.
Sure. And that's interesting, because in my last interview, the guy who I had last episode was we're talking about Phil Rudd, and another example, just the brilliance and the simplicity. I don't know if that makes sense. Like he knows, I mean, I'll put it this way, and I'm not knocking AC/DC in any way, shape, or form, but you wouldn't, I don't think having someone like Morgan Rose in there would work, because it's not going to work. Phil knew exactly where to space it, where the space should be, where the hits should be. And because also the Mark, my last guest on last episode, is actually by trade an engineer at a railroad museum, and he related to it almost the percussion of a moving locomotive, dun, 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 you know, that kind of thing. And like certain drummers wind up in the positions where they ought be. And then sometimes you see, those kind of silly videos like, oh, he's in the wrong gig and he's like flailing around and it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
wedding band or something, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean that happens all the time. I mean, I remember for my band Reverse,
Mm-hmm.
we were we were looking for a second guitar player, or no, we were looking for a bass player for a while. And we had some auditions. We had never done auditions. It always been, we knew everybody in the scene. It was just like, hey, this guy would be great. And, we actually did auditions. And there was a guy that came in with like a 5-string bass. And yeah, the guy on the record uh doesn't really play, doesn't, he's kind of simple. And so I worked it, I worked it up, and he played super busy, and not knowing that Ian, the guitar player, was the guy who played bass
Oh
on that.
no. Oh
Yeah.
no.
So yeah, that's what we wanted. We want
Yeah.
somebody to play like Phil Rudd on the bass, like simple, and fat and heavy, and it grooves and everything. And it was just like, wow, that's just, we always called it, I mean, I went to Berkeley, but like we always called it, oh, that's just so Berkeley. It's like you do. That's why, like, I had to, when I got out of there, I had to like kind of pare it down and stop that whole me centric. That's what I mean. You're there to learn, so
Sure.
you think you want to listen to drummers who are play busy, and you want to be able to do all this stuff. But I was just talking about this today. I was hanging out with a friend who's a writer and does and plays piano actually. But we were talking about the idea of learning everything so you don't have to think about it. Like you don't go into you don't I don't play a gig thinking about paradiddles or double stroke rolls, or
Sure.
just it's what you do,
Yeah.
like why a good cook doesn't have to think about all the following the recipes or how much of this. You've been doing it for so long that it's just like you just kind of do it.
Right.
So much of it, a runner doesn't think of, what the lope is, between the steps.
Just
You just run.
just run.
Right. And it's the same thing. Like you don't want to, you want to work yourself. You want to get good at, and you spend, yeah. So when you're shedding, you spend the time learning your instrument so you can do all this stuff, so you can forget it. Like the whole point is to,
Yeah.
is to forget it.
Just for the ones who are not familiar with the term shedding, I know what it is, but for those of who are listening who are define shedding.
It came from the woodshed. Like all the old jazz guys would say, he needs to go back to the woodshed, and that's what they would do, is go out to a woodshed and practice saxophone for hours and hours
Right.
and hours. So
Right.
we call it shedding.
Sure. No, I've heard
A
that.
lot of guys will go, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like,
No, but that was kind of something I was thinking of too. Like just recently when Taylor Hawkins passed away, of course, that was just a horrible thing. But when they did his tribute show, and for the most part, it was Josh Freese who did the work there and played. I did not doubt for a millisecond that he was the guy. Just
I
low
said
key.
it.
You
Yeah,
did too?
hey, yeah. I was just like, oh, Josh, he's the perfect guy for that band. Just killing it,
He's amazing.
absolutely killing. And he's a guy who, like, everything I've heard him play on, like, what's the song Judith by The Perfect Circle?
Oh, did he do that? Okay.
He's the drummer on that. That's like, there's like one fill that's really brilliant and kind of starts in a weird place, and it does something really cool, but it's like it's not overdone, and he plays great through the whole thing. I was like, that guy's really thinking about it, like, and not, he's thinking about the music, which is all I really care about. I don't care what you can
No.
do,
Right.
what gymnastics you can do. It doesn't interest me at all. I just care how the music feels and how the song, and I like songs too, like
Yeah.
I've been I like bands that have songs. Like I don't,
Yeah.
I can watch a drummer play with, something that's, I don't need, I'm trying to think of an example, like that's not really song related, but, or like there's a lot of groove bands now, jam bands, which I don't really like because I like songs.
Sure.
I need to hear,
Yeah.
30
I've
minutes.
always I've always been a song person too. Like some of my friends would be like, "Oh, let's just jam." I'm like, "On what?
I know.
What are we playing? We can jam within the song,
Sure.
but what are we playing? Give me
Yeah.
something I can work with, you know?"
Yeah.
Not that I'm not okay with improv, but it's like, what do we got? What do we got? You know?
Yeah. Well, for me, it has to go somewhere. It has to do
Mm,
something. I like it to ebb and flow and not just get louder and get softer, but like,
mm.
it's got to be a reason for it.
Although
You
that
know?
was the first thing I remember learning from you at the way back at the day jams things. When we finally got a piece of something going, you said, "Okay, can we play it loud? But now can we play it soft 4 times each?" That was like an exercise you taught us, and I still
Yeah.
use that. That's um that's
Yeah.
something I still use for
Yeah.
sure.
All of that stuff is like verse chorus.
Hmm.
Maybe everybody's playing the exact same thing.
But going back for a second about your minimal kit, but still, let's talk about reverse for a second. I the first thing I threw on this morning was Monkey Mind in my
Oh wow.
yeah, I did. Just because I wanted to get a frame of reference because I still have, I think it's the Jersey Switch album as well as just that one song, Monkey Mind. So that's my collection from what you guys had. But there's a part I think in the song, I think yeah, it's called Higher. I have it in my notes here,
Oh
but
yeah.
it sounds huge. Okay. And you guys were a trio, right? As far as I remember, it was you, it was Ian, and your bass player. I forget his name.
Yeah.
Obviously, in production or whatever, you can do whatever, but you guys sounded just as big live. Okay.
Mhm.
There's a difference percent. I tell people there's a difference between sounding big and loud. You guys sounded like a 10-story building.
Right, right. Which was the intent.
Sure, and it sounded great.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
how did you guys really achieve that as a trio? Because I know it reminded me of how Rush used to do things. They used to fill in not so much sounds but frequencies, like certain,
Well,
yeah.
that's the thing. Like, here's an example. I used to play when Atwood's Tavern in Cambridge first opened. I started playing years ago with this guy Tim Guerin. He's like a guitar player around town. Great guitar player, blues guitar player, great singer. And we were playing at this club down the street every Monday night. And when I joined this band, Expanding Man, my friend Andy got the gig, and I didn't, like he kept that gig. And when I came back, Tim and I still wanted to play. So we started this thing at Atwood's, and it was just me and him and this guy, Eric Royer, playing banjo and
Hmm.
singing. So it was banjo, guitar, and drums.
Hmm.
And my friend Goody, who was in Groovosaurus with us, with me and Ian, way back in the day, was like, you guys got to record this. It sounds huge. And the reason it sounds huge is because there's so much space. Like if we had, it's contradictory. Like reverse sounded bigger as a trio than it would if you added a guitar or added keyboards to it live.
Right.
The guitar is allowed to just be massive. It's like every time you add something, it makes everything smaller. Like Tim, we'd play with this guy Tim, and the band would be bass, drums, guitar, a keyboard player, and then like horn players would come and sit in. And as you would add stuff, it would get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Hmm.
You thinking it's like, oh, a big band, it's huge, and it's like
Hmm.
it's not like there's a reason. Like you don't have to fill in everything. Like hitting a bass drum once and letting it go boom is way bigger than going brrr,
That is
you
true.
know, you know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
you could play something really busy and it loses its hugeness. So
Mm.
that was kind of the thing. And Ian was a minimalist too, play and the bass playing was minimal, and so all these things. And we've been recording and playing music together for years. So the idea of like, what do we like? What bands do we want to sound like? Scissor Fight was one of our favorite bands, and they're huge sounding, and it's just a singer. It's a four-piece band, but he's just a singer. So it's
Mm.
just guitar, bass, and drums. And
Mm.
that shit was huge, just massive when they would play. And they'd play, the Middle East, and there'd be mosh pits, and people would be losing their minds
Sure.
because it's so immense.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And it depends on, the guitar player playing too, like how they play,
Sure.
you know. But less is more, is I guess the long way, the short way around saying what I'm trying.
Sure. Um, just for frame of reference, because okay, so I have my thing here. This is the part I'm talking about. So maybe you could explain to me what's going on here. Because that riff is kind of busy, no? Or
It is.
but the vocal is just one thing to
One
down to
note.
another. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that whole song is that riff, and then it's almost like a vamp for the verse,
Right.
and goes to a pre-chorus, and then it hits that riff. That's the chorus basically. Is that
Oh, I get it.
so?
Okay,
It's
so
so it's basically that riff is, if you were to like program it, or play it on piano, but there's like like there's like it's a chugging, like you said about the train. It's the
yeah,
same thing. The way it's
yeah.
played is playing every 16th note, but you're not. So whatever that rhythm is, it's chugging along because you're playing. Like if I'm playing it with my hands, I'm playing grace notes with my fingers, the notes that aren't there, and it makes it move.
That's so
So that's
cool.
all that's there, is the bass is doubling that riff.
Mm.
I'm playing straight over the top of it, and it's just that riff.
I think that the reason that song sticks out to me is because I think that was the first song you guys played in the set I saw you guys with.
Yeah, probably.
And I'm sitting dead center. I'm like Ian's like basically the monitor. Everything was so packed in that place. The school there where we were. Yeah, I'm just basically looking at him right here. I'm like, okay, light
Yeah,
him up.
yeah, yeah. It was weird playing like that. Was that the gym? No, that wasn't the gym. That was like the auditorium, the
Yeah, but it sounded great in there. I thought.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just a big. I remember the ceiling wasn't that high, which kind of
No, I
made it
mean,
better. But yeah,
not much higher than here, I'd say.
yeah, probably. Um, yeah, it was interesting. I mean, um,
Well, they had a good PA too, so that helped.
yeah, we always as a band, and Ian and I as musicians would talk about it all the time, like what makes what makes a record huge.
Mm,
Like Led Zeppelin is one of the few things, and everybody chases this, but I can't think of another band or another record that you can hear every instrument clear as a bell, but it
mm,
still sounds huge, and it's actually pretty minimal. There's not like a
yeah,
thousand guitar overdubs. There
no.
might be a rhythm and a lead, and that's it. And it's just it the less is more always really works for that stuff. And then I know it's like counterintuitive, and so many people think I'll just add, we'll put a keyboard pad, and I was like, oh, it's just gonna take up more space.
This right now, but my drummer Buck, he was somewhere between. I jokingly would call him a shoegaze drummer in a hard rock band. Um,
Right, right.
just because he was so laser focused on what he was doing. And there was this one time we were playing. I don't want to badmouth this place, but it was in Cambridge, and it was quote unquote an art gallery during the day. If you catch my drift.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
where was it? You don't want to say? You know.
I don't want to because I it was really not a good space, but basically there were no monitors for us to hear anything, so that was really kind of a bugger. But I'm playing and I'm really into it, and it felt good, and I get whacked in the side of the head by what felt like a wiffle ball bat. It was a drumstick. He had whipped a drumstick at me because I was so off because I couldn't hear myself.
Right, right.
And I turn around and I'm like, and he's going like over, like, we're here, dude. I'm like,
Right.
sorry.
Yeah.
That didn't pan out too well, but so the three of us, bass, guitar, drums, we would, and there would be times where we would lock in, looking at Buck for the cue, and
Right.
we were, and he was really, he didn't really, no big kit, no flashiness, actually everything was pretty low. He didn't even have like a high extended, and everything was pretty low to where he was playing, is just really, but when he would go, he could go and he could do all that stuff, but he was same thing. He was a song drummer. So,
Right.
I mentioned there would be a drummer on this episode, and Carrie Ann from Lynn had asked kind of a two-parter question. Do you have a specific favorite drum solo you've always liked watching, like as a spectator? That might mean a person, I'm not sure, or someone, but also, when you play, do you have any go-to fills or accents that you kind of like? I guess she's probably referring to like a stock stuff you might have that you might switch up a bit or whatever. Care to elaborate?
Yeah, it's weird because I'm like the last person. I've been known to, like, people joke about it actually, to the point where they're like, oh, Mike played for 2 hours tonight and never played a fill.
Interesting.
Like, and I mean, everything's like, if I'm playing a groove that's just hi-hat, kick, and snare, I'm playing fills. I'm setting up the chorus to just go ba-da-boom, and then in. So I never think of it's more of that, like, you learn all this stuff to not think about it and not do it. So I'm thinking about what's going on around me, and if I'm going to play a fill, the music informs that fill. Like, if it's a vocal thing, or why am I setting this up? Is it a section that's coming in that's going to be really big? So then I'm just going to do, something like that to just make it bigger. It's a function, not that I'm thinking about what cool thing can I impress the chicks with, like, and maybe I should actually, I don't know. Like,
we've all done it at least once.
but drum solos, obviously, like there's tons of like great Buddy Rich drum solos, but I like drum solos that I can sing back to. Like, there's a Steve Gadd thing. I had this record when I was junior, maybe high school. We were just talking about this. I know, I think, I had to play a gig. I rarely do any kind of like jobbing gigs, but a friend of mine has a band that has GB bands, general business. Like, so they're doing weddings and things like that. This was a party that they hired us to do. It was like the theme was yacht rock.
Oh
So
no.
like, late 70s, early 80s,
Christopher Cross.
all that kind of stuff. A bunch of the stuff wasn't yacht rock, but he gave me this song list and he said, here's the song list, like, learn all these songs. And I'm going through the list and I was like, I know all these songs because when I was in junior high and high school, I devoured anything that had Steve Gadd on it. And so the songs that were on this, I don't know how many, 30 song, 40 song playlist, 90% of it was Steve Gadd. And the 10% that wasn't Steve Gadd was Jeff Porcaro.
There you go.
And I ate up both those guys and like learned all that stuff. So there's a Steve Gadd. He went to Eastman College of Music with Chuck Mangione. So there's a Chuck Mangione, a live record called Tarantella, that they play the song called The 11th Commandment. And it's basically Chuck Mangione wrote this for Steve Gadd's scholarship tape to get into Eastman. So it goes through all these different feels, but it's songs, and so the like not songs, but like melodies, and they transition into different feels and stuff like that. I still know that whole thing by heart.
Right on.
like some of it I can't physically play, but I can sing it to you. And that's for like drum solos. That's what I love, is like if I can, like my friend Todd, that I can think of it right now. That the drum solo that he does on Vimeo, he's like dun 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 dun.
Right.
That's the melody. Like I knew that right off the top of my head. That's amazing to me when you're, you have a drum set and you're playing a solo, and I can memorize the entire thing because it's melodic. And I mean rhythmic and melodic, but it's if I can sing it, it's melodic to me. Like if I can sing it back.
Yeah.
Uh, and that the Steve Gadd stuff is always like that. Any solo that he plays, and it's kind of like he's got his whole thing of like the structures that he uses. Even when he plays with different people, there's a solo form, not a form, but like I'm going to do this thing now, and then there's this gear that I go into, and
Right.
so, and Buddy Rich is the same. Like the stuff is, he's playing, he's riffing, and they're just riffs. They're just basically these little things. And but if they make a song, if I can memorize it, then that's saying something. It's not
Right.
just a bunch
Sure.
of notes. Oh, I can play really fast. Awesome. See you later. I'm not interested.
All right. Any future gigs or record things coming up for Mr. Mike there, or?
So yeah, this kind of just happened recently, but so I was in this band for years with my friend Ian called Groovosaurus, and I left Groovosaurus to go with this band Expanding Man. When Expanding Man got dropped by the record label and we kind of all went our separate ways, that's when Ian and I started Reverse. When Ian died, that's when I was just like kind of a man without a country. And I've been, playing gigs and stuff, but I realized now, and I only realized it once I just joined this band Township. Um, and I was like, oh, I'm like a man without a country. Like that's what I had been missing. I've always been in a band, and I didn't have a band, and it was like, so now I have a band. I also just played on. I don't know if you ever heard of the band Bang Camaro. They were like, they did two records. Now I played on the third one that's coming out, and it's like a quartet for the rhythm section, and they do gang vocals like Balls to the Wall by Accept, like
Okay.
where it's shout choruses.
Ooh,
The
okay.
whole thing is shout choruses. The whole band, and they were on like MTV and stuff. They used to like they play like these big festivals in like the '90s, and they were all just like on the road. Just a bunch of dudes just making a mess and like coming up on stage and just like singing. Like
I
just
love
doing.
those.
Yeah, and it's great. It's really fun. So I just played on the new record,
All
uh,
right.
but we might do some shows. But the guitar player, so Bryn and Alex, it's their brainchild. Bryn Bennett and Alejandro Necochea are the two guitar players in um, Bang Camaro, and it's their brainchild. Bryn was the only guy to play guitar in reverse. I think when we played the Rumble, we added a second guitar for a couple of shows. And
Rumble, that
Austin,
old tune.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And Alex is in the band Township with me now. Like I just joined. They just
Oh, I'm
um
I'm so sorry. I thought you were talking about that old 50s Rumble song. Is that what it was
oh
called?
no. Did you know about the Rumble? Is like it's basically a battle of the bands that's been going on in Boston for like
Oh my gosh.
30
Where's
years.
my head at?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, when we
Sorry.
played the Rumble, it was Bryn was our that's the only time Reverse ever had us two guitars.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, they're all in the family. They're all great guys, and so that's basically what I'm doing. Like all three Reverse records are on there. So we put out one, the third one. It's called what's it called?
Well, there was Jersey Switch. There was Monkey Mind, the title
Monkey Mind
track.
was the second one,
Yep.
and so
I don't know about the third one.
and the third one it's white and it has a maze on the cover. Um,
Can't say
Never
as I
remember the name because what we were gonna call it is why did I say yes to this? Because Ian and I would always do this. We'd take gigs and we just go, you think it sounds like a good idea on the phone, and like then it's like, you just want to hang out with your family, or like, just go to bed early, and it's like, oh, why did I say yes to this? But
Nice.
I'll send it to you with the name of this.
Absolutely.
But that record, that third reverse record, is my, to date, still my favorite thing I've ever played on. That's
Yeah.
and Ian died, and we mixed it after he passed away.
Oh,
So it was like, it was really cathartic to
yeah.
like, and I hadn't heard, there was so much that we hadn't heard, because me and Mike had been done with bass and drums. We did basics a long time ago, and Ian was just working on it, adding guitars, adding vocals, doing different things. And I think
Was
Mike and I went in and listened, and and uh and we were just like, we added a little bit of percussion, and Mike added some background vocals, but that was about it, and we left it.
yeah.
And
I
it's really great.
I'm
I'm really
I
proud of
remember
him.
hearing when he passed, and I only met him that one time, but I know, and I still throw down to Jersey Switch every now and again. So I love what you guys created, and I was sad to hear that. So still my condolences for sure.
Yeah, it was that record it was funny because I remember having, I would listen to it all the time, and my wife was like, how can you listen? How can you listen to that? Like, we're all sad, and I was like, well, that's my friend. Like, I'm listening
Yeah.
to him and singing the songs that we wrote together, that we,
Yeah,
maybe.
it's almost like
But
it's
I
in a way
totally
he's here.
right. I totally
Yeah.
get why anybody else, including Ian's wife and other people, were just
Sure.
like, I can't listen to this right now. It's too heavy. But for me, it was like, I need to hear this. And it was
Yeah.
cathartic to like listen to my friend,
I
and
agree.
it was great. Like, it was, I loved it. And every time I put it on, it's like, there he is, like,
I'm gonna hear it. That's gonna be a thing for sure.
yeah.
So
We actually
yeah,
printed vinyl of those. I don't know if you're a vinyl guy.
I am actually.
Are you really? I'll
Yeah.
send you. Yeah, just send me your address. I still have to. I owe like two people them, and I got to get those
Oh,
cardboard mailers. But I'll mail you one. We
thank you
got,
very much. I appreciate that. Stop the tape now, but I think we got absolutely a bunch of great stuff. Thank you so much for coming on, and
yeah, thanks for having me.
so we'll see you soon.